You think you married a simple girl, but you're clueless about who I really am, I whisper under my breath, my fingers tightening around the edge of the kitchen counter. The cold marble does little to soothe the burning fury inside me, ignited by Ronan's words slicing through the air from the living room. His laughter, laced with disdain, seeps through the walls, a stark contrast to the silence enveloping me in my refuge. I mean, Alara's great and all, but she's not exactly the brightest. Got lucky marrying into our family, if you ask me, Ronan boasts on the phone, his voice dripping with a condescension that's become all too familiar. My heart races, every beat a reminder of the drastic shift our marriage has taken. From the charming suitor who'd once courted me with grand gestures and sweet nothings, to the man who now finds sport in belittling his wife to his friends. The transformation wasn't overnight, but the descent from indifference to outright contempt and control was swift. Working in my mother's boutique was supposed to be a temporary arrangement, a way to help out while searching for something more aligned with my degree. Yet here I stand, years later, still folding clothes and dodging my husband's barbs about my lack of ambition. If only you knew, I mutter to the empty room, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Ronan's voice grows louder, pulling me from my thoughts. Honestly, thought her family had more money. You know, with the boutique and all. Turns out, not so much. The revelation stings, not because of the truth in his words. Our financial struggles are no secret to me, but because of the implication. He married me under false pretenses, his affections as fabricated as the persona he paraded during our courtship. The facade crumbles a little more each day, revealing the true extent of his expectations. A hefty dowry, and a wife who would bend to his every whim. But beneath the veneer of the compliant spouse, a storm brews, fueled by the discovery of his hidden debts and gambling habits. The weight of his duplicity presses down on me, a constant reminder of the life I've been ensnared in. A plan begins to form, vague and unrefined, but it's a start. A way out of the shadows, to cast light on the man behind the mask. The thought is both terrifying and exhilarating. Patience, I remind myself, echoing my mother Sylvia's advice. She doesn't know the full extent of Ronan's transgressions, but she's always sensed the turmoil beneath my calm exterior. The sound of Ronan ending his call pulls me back to the present, the immediate need to conceal my turmoil paramount. I straighten, schooling my features into a mask of indifference before stepping back into the living room. Ronan doesn't spare me a glance, too engrossed in his phone, and for a moment, I'm grateful for the neglect. The evening passes with minimal interaction, a dance we've perfected over the months. But as I lay in bed, Ronan's snores filling the room, I can't help but feel the shift within me. The veil has lifted, and with it, the resolve to no longer be the victim in my own story. Tonight, the seeds of rebellion are sown, watered by the bitter tears of realization and the silent vow of retribution. Tomorrow, I begin to fight back, armed with the truth and the determination to reclaim my life from the ruins of a marriage built on deceit. The sun hadn't even crept through the curtains before Ronan's voice pierced the morning silence, a harbinger of the storm to come. "Alara, what's this? The coffee tastes like mud." His words, sharp and unforgiving, sliced through the last remnants of sleep clinging to my consciousness. I must have mixed up the measurements, I stammer, my voice barely above a whisper as I rush to his side, mug in hand. The truth is, the coffee is the same as it always is, but with Ronan, any minor deviation, or imagined one, is grounds for criticism. "Useless," he mutters under his breath, pushing the mug into my hands with such force that the hot liquid sloshes over the sides, scalding my skin. I wince, but dare not let the pain show. Showing weakness only fuels his disdain. As I turn to remake the coffee, trying to steady my trembling hands, Ronan's voice follows me, relentless. "And make sure breakfast is ready on time today. I have an important meeting. Can't afford to be late because you're dawdling." The morning wears on, each moment laden with tension. Breakfast is a silent affair, Ronan buried in his phone, occasionally throwing out commands or criticisms. The eggs are too runny, the toast not crisp enough. It seems there's no end to his displeasure. It's during these moments, caught in the cyclone of Ronan's demands, that I ponder the drastic change in him. The man I married, who once spoke of love and partnership, now sees me as little more than a servant in his grand scheme of life. The realization stings, a bitter pill swallowed daily. The door slams shut behind him, a temporary reprieve from his tirades. But the silence left in his wake is heavy, a constant reminder of the farce my life has become. I clear the breakfast dishes, my movements automatic, thoughts miles away. It's in this mechanical state that I find the envelope, used hidden beneath a pile of unopened bills, a reminder of another of Ronan's secrets. His gambling habits, once a mere whisper of concern, have ballooned into a full-blown storm, threatening to engulf us both. The numbers scrawled across the bills are astronomical, figures that we can't possibly hope to cover with the boutique's modest earnings and Ronan's dwindling salary. I sit, the weight of the envelope in my hands, a tangible symbol of the lies and deceit that have woven their way through our marriage. It's this moment, this tangible proof of Ronan's betrayal, that solidifies my resolve. No longer can I stand idly by, a spectator in my own life. The day drags on, each tick of the clock a reminder of the evening confrontation that awaits. When Ronan returns, his mood is foul, the remnants of whatever transpired at his meeting written clearly across his face. Before I can brace myself, he's upon me, his words a torrent of blame and anger. Do you have any idea how much pressure I'm under? And what do I come home to? A wife who can't even make a decent cup of coffee. The accusations sting, but they also fuel a fire within me. Ronan, we need to talk about the bills. The gambling debts. We can't. He cuts me off with a scoff, his eyes narrowing. Oh, so now you're keeping tabs on me? I work day in, day out, and this is the thanks I get? The argument spirals, his anger a palpable force that threatens to consume the room. But amidst the chaos, a clarity settles over me. This isn't just about surviving Ronan's tirades anymore. It's about reclaiming my life, piece by shattered piece. I won't let you drag us down with your debts, I assert, my voice steadier than I feel. We're going to fix this, but not like this. Not with lies. Ronan's response is a sneer, a promise of more battles to come. But as I stand my ground, I realize that this is just the beginning. The facade of our marriage has crumbled, revealing the rot beneath. And it's up to me to clear the wreckage, to forge a path out of the despair Ronan has cloaked us in. A year into our marriage, the facade of harmony has not just cracked but shattered, revealing the grim reality of our union. Ronan's abuse, both verbal and emotional, has escalated, pushing me into a corner of isolation and despair. Yet, it's in this darkness that a plan begins to take shape, a beacon of hope in the relentless storm. Sitting across from my mother, Sylvia, in the dim light of the boutique after hours, I finally muster the courage to voice the truth. Mom, Ronan's not who we thought he was. The gambling, the debts, it's worse than I ever imagined. Sylvia's expression, a mix of concern and resolve, doesn't waver. Alara, you've been carrying this burden alone for too long. It's time we face this head on. But how? He's made it clear he won't change. And now there's talk of selling the boutique to cover his debts. I confess, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. We won't let that happen, Sylvia asserts, her voice firm. It's time Ronan understood the consequences of his actions. We've been silent for too long. The strategy we devise is simple, yet daring. We'll confront Ronan, not with accusations, but with the stark reality of our financial situation. It's a gamble, but one we're willing to take to expose his true motives. The opportunity presents itself one evening when Ronan, in a rare moment of calm, mentions the boutique. Alara, we need to talk about selling. It could solve a lot of our problems. Standing in our living room, I feel Sylvia's supportive presence behind me as I face him. Ronan, the boutique isn't the problem, it's the solution. Your gambling is what's brought us here. Ronan's reaction is immediate, his face contorting with anger. So this is my fault? I'm working day and night, and you blame me? It's not about blame. It's about reality. Your debts are drowning us, and selling the boutique won't fix that, I reply, my voice steady despite the shaking of my hands. Sylvia steps forward, her demeanor unyielding. The boutique has been in our family for generations. It's not just a business, it's our legacy, and we won't let it be destroyed by recklessness. Ronan's gaze shifts between us, a mixture of surprise and defiance in his eyes. You think you can dictate what I do? It's my name on the line. But it's our lives at stake, I counter, emboldened by my mother's strength. We're willing to work with you, Ronan, but not at the expense of our future. The standoff ends with Ronan storming out, his threats echoing behind him. But in his absence, a sense of unity fortifies between my mother and me. For the first time in months, I feel a flicker of hope. The following days are tense, with Ronan's mood swinging wildly. Yet there's a shift in the air, a sense that the tide may be turning. My resolve hardens with each passing moment, the plan to expose Ronan's true motives gaining clarity. One evening, as I sit alone in the boutique pondering the path ahead, a knock at the door jolts me from my thoughts. It's Jude, an old friend and confidant, whose unexpected visit brings a sense of normalcy to my chaotic world. "Alara, I've been worried about you. How are you holding up?" Jude's concern is genuine, a balm to the wounds inflicted by months of turmoil. "It's complicated. Ronan's not the man I thought he was," I admit, the words flowing more freely than I anticipated. Jude listens intently, his expression a mix of anger and sympathy. "You don't have to go through this alone, Alara. If there's anything I can do..." It's in this moment, confiding in Jude, that the final piece of our plan crystallizes. Ronan's actions, once hidden behind closed doors, will soon be brought to light. With Jude's unexpected support, the journey toward justice and revenge seems less daunting. Together, we begin to lay the groundwork for Ronan's public exposure, a step toward reclaiming my life from the ruins of a marriage built on deceit and manipulation. The flu hit me like a freight train, leaving me bedridden and weak. In any other household, sickness might elicit a modicum of sympathy or care. But in mine, it's seen as nothing more than an inconvenience, a failure to fulfill my duties as Ronan's wife. "Alara, this place is a mess," Ronan barks, his voice booming through the small, dark, cluttered apartment that's felt more like a prison than a home these past months. "And what's this? You're still in bed?" It's nearly noon. Struggling to sit up, I clutch the blanket tighter around my shivering body. "I'm really not well, Ronan. I can barely stand," I manage to say, my voice weak and hoarse. Ronan's glare is icy as he surveys the room, his disgust palpable. "Sick? Or just lazy? You know, I can't rely on you for anything." His words cut deeper than the sharp pains racking my body. It's in this moment of vulnerability, faced with his unrelenting cruelty, that the resolve within me hardens further. I need to escape this cycle of abuse, not just for my sake, but for my sanity. As Ronan storms out, presumably to find solace in his vices, I'm left alone with my thoughts and a growing sense of desperation. It's then that I remember Jude's offer of support. Picking up my phone feels like lifting a boulder, but the need for an ally, for someone to understand, gives me strength. Jude answers on the second ring. "Alara, how are you?" "Jude, I need help," I admit, the admission of weakness bringing tears to my eyes. There's no hesitation on his end. "I'll be right there," he says, and the line goes dead. When Jude arrives, the concern in his eyes is a stark contrast to the disdain I've grown accustomed to from Ronan. He doesn't recoil at the sight of the disarray or my disheveled state. Instead, he steps forward, ready to offer whatever aid he can. "Alara, tell me what to do. How can I help?" Jude asks, his voice steady and comforting. "Just being here is more than enough," I reply, a small smile breaking through the gloom. Together, we tidy up the space, his presence a calming force in the storm that has become my life. It's during this rare moment of peace that I confide in Jude the full extent of Ronan's behavior, the manipulation, the debts, and the emotional torment. Jude listens in silence, his expression hardening with each revelation. "This can't go on, Alara. You deserve so much better," Jude says once I've finished, his conviction clear. "I know, but I'm not sure what to do. I feel so trapped," I confess, the weight of my situation bearing down on me. Jude's response is immediate and resolute. "We'll find a way. You're not alone in this. Remember that." As Jude leaves, promising to return with help, I'm left with a newfound sense of determination. His visit, though brief, has reignited the flame of resistance within me. I can't change the past, but with Jude's support, I can fight for a future free from Ronan's tyranny. The days that follow are a blur of planning and whispered conversations. Jude becomes an invaluable ally, offering both emotional support and practical assistance. Together, we begin to document Ronan's abuses, compiling evidence for the day when we can finally expose him and break free from his grasp. It's a dangerous game we're playing, one fraught with risk and uncertainty, but the alternative, a life of continued abuse and despair, is no longer an option. With each passing day, my resolve strengthens, fueled by the support of my unlikely ally and the hope for a brighter future. The path to freedom is fraught with obstacles, but for the first time in a long time, I dare to believe that escape is within reach. Jude's unexpected visit had breathed new life into my wilted spirit, his presence a beacon of hope in the unending night that had become my existence. It was during one of these visits, as we sat plotting our next move in the quiet sanctuary of my mother's boutique after hours, that fate decided to twist the knife a bit further. Ronan, in a rare and unforeseen move, decided to grace the boutique with his presence. His sudden appearance at the door was like a storm cloud blotting out the sun, casting a shadow over the newfound hope I had clung to so desperately. "Alara, what the hell is this? Playing shop while the house falls apart." Ronan's voice boomed through the space, his words laced with venom. Jude, ever the pillar of calm in the face of adversity, stood beside me, an unwavering ally against Ronan's tempest. "Everything's under control, Ronan. Maybe you should head back," Jude suggested, his tone firm yet diplomatic, a stark contrast to Ronan's aggression. Ronan's eyes narrowed, his gaze flitting between Jude and me, suspicion igniting like wildfire in his eyes. "And who are you to tell me what to do? Another of Alara's little projects?" The tension in the air was palpable, a tangible force that seemed to squeeze the very breath from my lungs. Yet, despite the fear that clawed at my insides, a spark of defiance flickered to life. "Jude is a friend, someone who actually cares about my well-being," I retorted, my voice stronger than I felt. Ronan's laugh was cruel, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "A friend, huh? Don't make me laugh. You're pathetic, Alara, both of you." It was then, amidst the torrent of Ronan's insults, that Jude did something unexpected. He pulled out his phone, subtly positioning it to capture the tirade. Ronan, too caught up in his own fury, failed to notice the silent witness documenting his every word. As Ronan stormed out, leaving a trail of bitter words in his wake, Jude turned to me, his expression grave. "I got it all on video, Alara. This could be what we need to expose him." The realization of what Jude had done, of the weapon we now possessed, was overwhelming. A mixture of fear and exhilaration flooded through me, the implications of our actions both terrifying and thrilling. "Thank you, Jude. I don't know what to say." Jude's smile was gentle, a balm to the chaos that had erupted. "You don't have to say anything. Just know you're not alone." In the days that followed, the video became the cornerstone of our plan. Jude, with contacts in local media and a keen sense of justice, began laying the groundwork for Ronan's exposure. Our meetings were filled with whispered strategies and cautious optimism, each step forward a delicate dance on the tightrope of revenge. The decision to go public was not made lightly. The potential fallout loomed large, a specter of consequence that could not be ignored. Yet, the need for justice, for an end to the cycle of abuse, outweighed the fear. "It's time, Alara. Are you ready?" Jude asked one evening, his finger hovering over the send button that would catapult our carefully guarded secret into the unforgiving light of public scrutiny. Taking a deep breath, I nodded, the weight of the moment settling heavy on my shoulders. "I'm ready. Let's do this." With a single click, Jude set the wheels of retribution in motion. The video, a damning testament to Ronan's true nature, was sent spiraling into the digital ether, a harbinger of the storm to come. As we waited for the inevitable backlash, a sense of peace settled over me. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I dared to hope for a future free from the shadows of Ronan's tyranny. The battle was far from over, but with Jude by my side, I felt invincible. Together, we had ignited the flame of justice, and now there was no turning back. The morning after sending the video felt like the calm before the storm. The silence was almost deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos I knew was brewing on the horizon. Jude and I met at the boutique, our unofficial war room, waiting for the inevitable explosion that would come once Ronan discovered his sins laid bare for all to see. It wasn't long before the first signs of the tempest appeared. My phone buzzed relentlessly, notifications flooding in as the video spread like wildfire across social media platforms. The local news had picked up the story, amplifying it further, the headline screaming betrayal and deceit. "Alara Morris exposes husband's abuse and deceit." It read, a simple yet powerful declaration of my stand against Ronan. As the world watched, Ronan's carefully constructed facade crumbled. Friends, colleagues, and even strangers voiced their support for me, their words a balm to the wounds inflicted over the years. But with the support came backlash, Ronan's defenders crawling from the woodwork, their words sharp and unforgiving. I was preparing for another day at the boutique when Ronan stormed in, his face a mask of rage and humiliation. "You've ruined me, Alara," he spat, his voice trembling with fury. "How dare you air our dirty laundry for the world to see?" Standing my ground, I met his gaze, the fear that once would have crippled me, now replaced by a steadfast resolve. "No, Ronan, you did this to yourself. I'm just shedding light on the truth." The confrontation was intense, Ronan's anger clashing with my newfound strength. Jude was there, a silent sentinel, ready to intervene if necessary. But it was clear Ronan's power over me had diminished, his threats empty in the face of my determination. "You'll pay for this," Ronan hissed, a final desperate attempt to regain control. But his words no longer held sway over me. "I already have, Ronan. Now it's your turn." The fallout from the video was swift and merciless. Ronan's professional life unraveled as his employer, faced with public pressure, terminated his position. His social circle, once a fortress of support, crumbled as friends and acquaintances distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with a man exposed as an abuser and manipulator. With each passing day, the reality of his situation seemed to weigh heavier on Ronan, his once confident demeanor replaced by a sullen, defeated air. The tables had turned, and the predator found himself the prey, isolated and ostracized by the very community he had once dominated. For me, the days became a blur of interviews and meetings, my story a rallying cry for those who had suffered in silence. The support was overwhelming, a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit. As Ronan's world collapsed around him, a sense of vindication filled me. It wasn't joy. There was no joy in the pain and suffering that had led to this moment, but a deep, profound sense of justice. For too long, I had lived in the shadows of Ronan's tyranny, but no more. The battle was far from over. Legal proceedings loomed on the horizon, a daunting path fraught with its own challenges. But as I stood in the boutique, now a beacon of hope and defiance, I knew I was ready to face whatever came next. With Jude by my side and a community of supporters behind me, I stepped into the light, a survivor no longer defined by the abuse I had endured, but by the strength I had found in my fight for justice. Ronan's downfall was not the end of my story, but the beginning of a new chapter, one written on my terms, in my voice. The repercussions of Ronan's exposure reverberated far beyond the initial shockwave, eroding the very foundation of his existence. His professional downfall was swift, a stark reminder of the consequences of his actions. But it was the personal fallout that truly marked the beginning of his undoing. Ronan, once a fixture in social circles, now found himself ostracized, a pariah in the community he had dominated. The isolation was a bitter pill to swallow, each day a reminder of the empire of lies he had built and lost. I watched from a distance, my resolve unshaken, as Ronan grappled with his new reality. The boutique became my sanctuary, a place of strength and solidarity. Jude was a constant presence, his support unwavering as we navigated the aftermath together. It was during one of our strategy sessions that Ronan made his last desperate attempt to regain control. He barged into the boutique, his eyes wild with desperation. "Alara, you have to stop this. You're destroying everything." His plea was met with cold indifference. "You did this to yourself, Ronan. I'm just seeking justice." Ronan's gaze flickered between Jude and me, searching for any sign of weakness. But there was none to be found. "You'll regret this," he muttered, a hollow threat that no longer held any power. The legal proceedings were grueling, a drawn-out battle that tested my limits. But with each passing day, I grew stronger, more confident in my pursuit of justice. Ronan's attempts to undermine me fell on deaf ears, his credibility shattered by his own actions. As the divorce settlement was finalized, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over me. The court awarded me a substantial portion of Ronan's assets, a small compensation for the years of deceit and abuse. But it was more than just financial security. It was a symbol of my victory over Ronan, a tangible proof of my newfound independence. "You're free now, Alara," Jude said, his voice filled with pride. The words resonated deep within me, a beacon of hope in the aftermath of the storm. "I know," It's finally over. In the months that followed, Ronan's life continued to unravel. His attempts to rebuild his reputation were futile, the stain of his actions indelible. The man who had once held so much power was now a shadow of his former self, struggling to navigate a world that had turned its back on him. For me, the end of my marriage to Ronan marked the beginning of a new chapter. The boutique thrived, a testament to my resilience and determination. And with each passing day, I found strength in my independence, my spirit no longer weighed down by the chains of the past. As I stood in the boutique, surrounded by friends and supporters, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. The road had been long and fraught with challenges, but I had emerged stronger, a survivor in the truest sense. "Here's to new beginnings," Jude toasted, raising his glass in a salute. I smiled, my heart full of gratitude for the support that had carried me through the darkest of times. "To new beginnings," I echoed, my voice steady and sure. The battle was over, but my story was just beginning. A story of hope, of courage, and of a woman who refused to be silenced. Ronan's downfall was not just a victory for me, but for all those who had suffered in silence, a beacon of light in the darkness. As I looked around at the faces of my friends and supporters, I knew that this was not the end, but a new beginning. A chance to rebuild, to dream, and to live a life free from the shadows of the past. In the aftermath of Ronan's downfall, life began to take on a new rhythm, one marked by peace rather than turmoil. The boutique, once a silent witness to my suffering, became a vibrant hub of creativity and empowerment. With each passing day, I found myself stepping more confidently into the role of proprietor, my mother's legacy now firmly in my hands. It was during a quiet morning, the sun casting a warm glow over the newly arranged displays, that Sylvia approached me, her eyes shining with unspoken pride. "You've done well, Alara. Your strength has turned this place into more than just a boutique. It's a symbol of hope." Her words, simple yet profound, filled me with a sense of accomplishment. "Thanks, Mom. It feels good to be free to make a difference." The boutique had become more than just a business. It was a community. Women from all walks of life came not just to shop, but to share their stories, finding solace and strength in the solidarity we offered. And as my story became known, the boutique's mission evolved, transforming into a beacon for those seeking to reclaim their lives from the shadows of abuse. One afternoon, as I was rearranging a window display, a familiar face appeared on the other side of the glass. Jude, his supportive presence a constant throughout my journey, stepped inside, a smile playing on his lips. "Looks like you've turned this place into something truly special, Alara," he commented, his gaze sweeping over the vibrant interior. I smiled, acknowledging the truth in his words. "It's become more than I ever imagined, and it's all thanks to the support of friends like you." Jude's smile widened. "I wouldn't have missed it for the world. You've turned your pain into something powerful, Alara. You should be proud." Our conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a customer, a young woman whose eyes held a familiar flicker of resolve. As Jude excused himself, I turned my attention to her, ready to offer the same support that had once been extended to me. The boutique was not just a place of business. It had become a sanctuary, a place where stories of pain and resilience were woven into the very fabric of its existence. And as I shared my journey, I found strength in the shared experiences, a collective healing that transcended the personal. In the months that followed, my advocacy work grew, the boutique serving as a launching pad for initiatives aimed at supporting survivors of domestic abuse. Seminars, workshops, and support groups filled our calendar, each event a step towards breaking the silence that had once kept me prisoner. As I closed the boutique one evening, the last rays of sunlight casting a soft glow over the empty space, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. The journey had been long, filled with moments of despair and triumph, but as I stood there, surrounded by the tangible evidence of my resilience, I felt a deep, abiding sense of peace. Ronan's shadow no longer loomed over my life. Instead, I had emerged from the darkness, my spirit unbroken, my resolve unwavering. The boutique, once a reminder of my pain, was now a testament to my strength, a symbol of hope for those walking the path I had once trod. As I locked the door and stepped out into the evening, the cool air brushing against my skin, I felt a profound sense of closure. The battle was over, and I had emerged victorious, not just over Ronan, but over the fear and doubt that had once held me captive. Walking away from the boutique, I looked up at the stars, their light a reminder of the endless possibilities that lay ahead. The future was mine to shape, a blank canvas awaiting the touch of my hand. And as I took those first steps into the unknown, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them with the same courage and determination that had led me to this moment of rebirth. The end of my marriage to Ronan was not just an ending. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope, healing, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.
Take care of the loan repayment, will you? While I was at work, I suddenly received an email. When I hastily contacted him, Greg calmly began to explain. "Oh, sorry about that. I've fallen for a woman. I've decided to start a new life with her." Moreover, he was planning to take the luxury car that he had recently bought in my name with a loan. Despite my attempts to stop him, my husband ignored me, ended the call abruptly, and then became unreachable. In the end, Greg disappeared with his mistress, leaving behind a huge debt. As a mother to our 10-year-old son, I never imagined such an unfair situation would arise. I was at a loss, not knowing what to do, my mind going blank. I am 35 years old. My name is Julia. My husband Greg is the same age. We were a family of 3, including our 10-year-old son Ryan. Ryan has been incredibly smart since he was young, reading papers on the computer and asking for my opinion on them. Despite being baffled by such complex topics, I was always amazed by his intelligence. In contrast to Ryan, Greg was unstable, never holding down a steady job. I worked full-time, feeling anxious about our future. However, around those days, Greg finally managed to keep the same job for 3 years, earning a stable income. Lately, Greg talked about making memories with the 3 of us, and we decided to buy a $35,000 camper van. However, since Greg couldn't pass the finance company's loan review under his name, I ended up taking the loan for the car. Then on the long-awaited delivery day of the camper van, something unexpected happened. I received an abrupt email from Greg saying, "I'll graciously take the delivered camper van since the loan is in your name. You'll handle the repayments." I called my husband immediately, not understanding what it meant. Well, I've fallen in love with another woman and decided to date her. What? What are you talking about? I intended it to be just a fling, but it turned serious. So I'm thinking of starting over my life with her. Bye. I had prepared the divorce papers when we had that fight before, remember? "I'll file them," he said, and then unilaterally ended the call. This exchange was the first time I realized I had been betrayed by Greg, and it was a shocking blow. After that, no matter how many times I called, there was no response from Greg. Julia thought, can something like this really happen? When I got home from work and opened the drawer where the divorce papers should have been, they were already gone. Thus, I was left with a huge debt from a $35,000 car loan. Despite my attempts to contact my husband through emails and calls afterward, I never received a reply. Ryan, noticing my unusual behavior, came to check on me with concern after dinner. "Mom, what's wrong? You haven't been eating much lately. Are you okay?" Yeah, maybe. I'm just tired." When people lie, they look up to the right. Lying is bad. I've noticed Dad hasn't been home for 3 days, right? Did something happen between you two? Startled by Ryan's sharp words, I took a deep breath to calm myself. Feeling that I could no longer hide the truth, I decided to tell Ryan everything. "I see. It's just like Dad to do something like that. Aren't you sad?" No, I kind of understood from how things were going. Ryan, seemingly foreseeing the future, appeared unconcerned about our parents' divorce, but I knew he must feel sad about it in his heart. While silently apologizing to Ryan in my mind, I worked desperately, trying not to think about the dreadful events. However, my body was honest, and gradually, my health deteriorated. There was a training session planned at work that day, but I couldn't stand up and ended up squatting down. Sorry, I can't stand up right now. I need to take a break. I heard my colleagues' voices full of concern, but I couldn't respond and collapsed. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in a hospital room. I received a diagnosis from the doctor that I needed detailed examinations, and I was admitted to the hospital. Julia thought, I feel so pathetic. It's supposed to be just emotional stress. Looking at the IV drip in my arm and the white ceiling of the hospital room, tears naturally started to flow. At that moment, Ryan, who is usually calm, rushed into the room with an extremely worried look, prompting me to quickly wipe away my tears. Mom, what happened? Is it serious? You're not going to die, right? Of course not. I wouldn't leave my dear son alone. That's good. Really, I was called by the school teacher and told that you were taken to the hospital. I was so shocked. My heart nearly stopped. Ryan Ran is usually mature for his age, but he's still only 10. I felt a strong resolve to get better for his sake, but my condition was worse than I thought, and I was diagnosed with a serious illness. The doctor advised you should have surgery as soon as possible. Please make a decision quickly. Following the doctor's advice, I underwent surgery. By the time I was discharged, it had been a month since Greg had left. When I returned home and opened the mailbox, I found a demand letter for the car loan payment. Julia thought the repayment should have been automatically deducted from my account. What happened? In a panic, I checked the account balance with my cash card, and the balance, which was originally $20,000, was now only $33.90. Julia thought, Greg did this. I want to ask him to return the money, but I can't contact him. What should I do? Since I don't have the camper van, I can't sell it. After Greg left, everything seemed to be going in a bad direction, and my mood sunk deeper. Seeing me saddened by my series of misfortunes, Ryan put his hand on my forehead. You look pale. Are you feeling sick again? You don't seem to have a fever, though. I'm fine physically, but you see, your father not only took the car, but also all the money we had saved. I can't work yet due to my physical condition, and now we have no money. I'm at a loss. I see. Then I'll deliver newspapers, and I'll search the internet to see if there's any work I can do. Encouraged by my 10-year-old son, I told myself that it wasn't the time to be down. Sorry for worrying you. I can't afford to be weak. I'll change my mindset and try to do whatever I can. Smiling at him, Ryan also smiled back and then said something unexpected. Let's plan how to get the car back from Dad. How can we do that? The camper van is in your name, right? Yes, but what about it? Then maybe we can. Ryan suggested an idea that I couldn't even imagine. I had never thought such an idea could exist. Also, I have no idea where your father is. Then let's check on my phone. A month ago, once when we went hiking as a family, surprisingly, Ryan, who is usually very reliable, got lost. At that time, we bought a kid's cell phone on Ryan's suggestion and installed a GPS app on it, which both Greg and I could access. With this app, I can see where Dad is in real time, and he's been moving around a lot. Oh, is that so? But what if we find him, and he just says something vague and escapes again? As I pondered this, Ryan smiled and made an intriguing suggestion. Don't worry, I've already taken precautions. What? What did you just say? To my astonishment, Ryan had acted independently while I was in the hospital, achieving something unbelievable. I thought, I can't believe such a smart child came from me. Understanding Ryan's words, I was simply amazed. He had even caught wind of Greg's mistress. All right, let's teach Dad who betrayed us a lesson. Okay, let's start the plan right away. Together, my son and I prepared for that moment. Julia thought, with Ryan by my side, I'm invincible. Bring it on anywhere, anytime. Then 3 days later, my phone rang. Ah, it's me. Please, I need your help. Oh, who might this be? Don't play dumb. It's your husband, obviously. I'm being questioned by the police about you. At this rate, they might ask me to come to the police station voluntarily. Help me out. Oh, is that so? Just wait a moment. Then I immediately went with my son to where Greg was. And to my surprise, it was a forest park near our house where camping was possible. Greg was being questioned by the police in front of his car, looking bewildered. Feeling pathetic, I sighed and told the police, we need to have a talk as a couple, and asked them to return for a while. At that time, Greg seemed uncomfortable being watched by the people around us, and urged Ryan and me to get into the car. Inside the car, Greg's mistress was sitting cross-legged, glaring at us, but that was no longer important. Sorry about that. Thanks for coming, but why did the police suddenly show up at my place? I don't get it. That's because I filed a report about the missing camper van. What? Why would you do that? It's obvious, isn't it? My car was stolen. Greg, foolishly thinking that actions between spouses can't be criminal, was saying nonsensical things. But the world isn't that naive. You know you filed for divorce, remember? I forgot. So we are strangers now, and you're driving a stranger's car without permission. That's a crime. Ryan figured all this out. Typical, sharp as ever, that kid. But I didn't steal the car. I just borrowed it for a bit. Oh, is that so? Well, I'd like to use my car now. So could you return it? That would be really helpful. As I reached out my hand asking Greg to return the keys, he reluctantly handed them over after confirming it was returned. Ryan quietly started talking, hey, why did you abandon your family and choose to play around with this woman? Caught off guard by his son's unexpected question, Greg was flustered and awkwardly scratched his head. Seeing this, Greg's mistress chuckled smugly and started talking. It's because I'm more attractive than your mother. Look at me, you can see it, right? He fell head over heels for me and decided to leave his family. Quiet. I didn't ask you, old lady. Dad, you answer. Mandy was silenced by Ryan's stern tone, but Greg remained quiet. If you can't explain, that's fine. I'll just have the police come back and arrest you. Wait, hold on. Okay, I'll talk. Mandy joined Greg's company 3 months ago. They were attracted to each other and became involved at the welcome party for new employees. Later, it was discovered that Mandy was pregnant, and Greg decided to start a new life with her, leaving us behind. Why did you take the camper van? I quit my job and thought about selling the car for money. But it seems like you were using it quite a bit, weren't you? I thought it was a waste to sell it right away, so we decided to go on a trip. Wait, how do you know all this? Remember when Ryan got lost? After that, as a precaution, we bought him a kid's cell phone and installed a GPS app. Did you forget we installed it on your phone too? So I knew where you were all this time. By the way, I later found out from Ryan that he had pretended to get lost during our family hike because he wanted a cell phone. I was amazed at Ryan's ability to think and act so strategically. I suspected something was off with Dad, so I came up with this plan to monitor his actions. You really are a terrifying child. I will never become an adult like you, Dad, who betrays important people without a second thought. Greg, faced with the hard truth Ryan told, was a pitiful adult unable to offer any rebuttal. In contrast, seeing Ryan, only 10 but able to think and speak his mind firmly, gave me a sense of strength as a mother. I felt I couldn't lose, especially in settling things properly. Also, return the $20,000 you withdrew from my account right now. That was our joint property as a couple. I don't have to return it. No, it's not. That money was what I saved little by little since I was single. After all, you always quit your jobs midway, so we hardly ever saved money together. I was appalled to hear that the $20,000 had been squandered by Greg and his mistress. It was the moment I felt relieved about divorcing him. So that's how it is. But if you stole and used the car and my money, that's going to be a serious crime. I just sent the police away, so it's not their business anymore. I only said we would talk. I have no intention of withdrawing the complaint. I must add the theft of my money to the report. Mom, should I call the police now? I can do it with just one button on my phone. Mandy, Greg's mistress, had been watching our conversation but quickly tried to get out of the camper van. At that moment, she let out a scream that echoed around. The reason was that outside the car door, Mandy's parents were standing, their faces red with anger, about to explode in fury. Startled, she stepped back as her parents yelled at her. I'm sorry. Don't be so angry. But why are you here, Mom and Dad? I called your parents beforehand. What? Why? The truth was, during my hospital stay, Ryan had visited Greg's office and tearfully told them. My dad left the house with a woman we don't know, and my mom collapsed. Seeing Ryan's sorrowful and frail state, the people at Greg's office suspected Mandy, who had left the company with Greg, and gave Ryan her parents' address. Greg and Mandy had been overly friendly at the office, and there were photos showing them together at the welcome party for new employees, looking like a couple. After learning from the office people that you commuted from your parents' house, I went there with your photo. Your parents came out when I visited. Then I told them everything that had happened. So today, I contacted Mandy's parents and asked them to wait nearby for a while. How could you do this to me? The worst, I don't want to hear that from you. That's my line. By the way, your stomach seems quite big. What does the baby do? In 3 months. What? Wait a minute. That doesn't add up with when you met my husband. You two met only 3 months ago, right? What's going on? It's not time for the baby to be born yet, Greg. Hearing this for the first time, Greg stared at Mandy, eyes wide. Wait, what does that mean? Are you stupid? Don't you get it? It takes about 9 months from conception to birth, which means the child she's carrying isn't yours. You're so foolish. What do you mean, Mandy? Have you been deceiving me? I almost got away with it. Can't help it now that I'm caught. You're so naive. You can't see through lies at all. Really a fool. Don't mock me. My whole life is ruined because of you. What were you thinking? Greg and Mandy started an ugly argument, but nobody intervened, letting them have it out. Meanwhile, we contacted the police again to explain the situation. As it began to get dark, the forest park was brightly lit by the red lights of the police cars. No, really, I was wrong. I was truly wrong. I'm sorry. I'll work hard and never cheat again. So please, just don't arrest me, Dad. People don't change that easily, especially lazy people like you. Exactly, Ryan's right. I can't trust you at all. Reflect on your actions and pay for your crimes at the police station. If I get arrested, I won't be able to pay back the money. Is that okay with you? I don't mind. Pay me back after you've atoned for your sins. Take your time. Don't worry, I've already found you a place to work. Let's see, there's Ryan's child support, plus the $220,000 you stole from me. I'm not sure how much it will all add up to, but you'll work and pay it all back. I had one last thing to say to Mandy, the mistress. You might think you're just an onlooker, but don't forget you're an accomplice to Greg's theft. Be prepared for that. When I told them that Mandy would have to pay if Greg couldn't return the stolen money, she shivered in fear. Mandy asked her parents for help, but they refused, saying, "We disown a daughter who causes trouble for others." Thus, Greg and Mandy were taken away in a police car together. Thanks to Ryan's smart strategy, we were able to punish Greg and his mistress, Mandy. Though they were released from detention soon after, they faced a hefty payment to me. Through a lawyer, I claimed $20,000 in damages. Additionally, I made Greg agree to pay $500 a month in child support for Ryan. I introduced Greg to a subcontracting factory of the company I work for. The support and other charges I claimed from Greg would be deducted from his salary and paid into my account. I also sold the camper van and was freed from the auto loan. Since then, my health has improved remarkably, and I am now energetically committed to my job. Ryan has been actively helping with household chores and errands. I want to keep moving forward strongly so that Ryan can pursue the path he loves without giving up. I will never forget the day I met Jack, as if it were only yesterday. I could be found sipping the lowest-priced coffee in a small cafe, my human soul somewhere behind furrowed brows amid a gust of planning and organizing. Then he walked through the door like a scene from a film. No bright lights had come on, and no music began to blare. It was only the bell over the door giving him away as old coffee mixed with his cologne washed up through our shared vents. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, pointing to the chair opposite me with a charming smile. "Looks free to me," I replied, trying to act cool and not show how surprised I was by his sudden arrival. We started chatting, and it felt like we were made for each other. He liked all the same things I did, from binge-watching the same cheesy TV shows to debating the best pizza topping. And yes, it's pineapple. Fight me on it. Soon we were dating seriously, not just hanging out now and then. It was like I'd known him all my life. Before long, we were even talking about marriage. That's when the trouble started. His parents, let me tell you, were tough to deal with. The first time I met them, it felt like walking into a lion's den wearing a steak. They had a way of smiling while sizing you up, deciding if you were good enough or not. "So you're the girl Jack can't stop talking about," his mom said, her tone anything but friendly. "Guilty as charged," I replied, trying not to let her get to me. They quickly made it clear they wanted us to sign a prenuptial agreement. Now, I'm not after anyone's money, but I didn't like how they approached it. "I'll sign your prenup," I told them, but on one condition. If one of us cheats, the cheater has to pay up to $200,000. Jack looked as if I'd hit him with a fish. "Babe, I'd never cheat on you," he said, looking serious. "Yeah, well, my ex said the same thing before I caught him cheating," I said. So it was this deal or nothing. He agreed, and so did his parents, although they looked pretty sour about it. We thought that was the end of that issue, but we were wrong. One evening, we were snuggled up on our old creaky couch. We kept saying we'd replace it, but never did because it was our special spot. The TV was on, but we weren't really watching. We were too excited, planning a trip to Switzerland we knew we couldn't really afford, but were determined to make happen. Think about it, Jack. The food, the wine, the art. "We have to go," I said, my eyes lit up with excitement. Jack laughed and hugged me closer. "Emma, you had me at food. but let's be real. Our bank account is more suited for camping in the backyard than a romantic trip to Luzerne. I nudged him playfully. So we'll save. We'll cut back on things we don't need, like your video games. He pretended to be shocked. Not the video games. Take my shirts, my shoes, even my beloved coffee maker, but leave the games alone. We laughed together. That was typical for us, dreaming big but staying realistic about our simple life. And we were happy. Our joy wasn't just in big adventures, it was in the little things too. Like how Jack would make breakfast on Saturdays. He couldn't really cook, but he had somehow mastered scrambled eggs and toast, which he'd serve with his terrible coffee. I loved those mornings. Hey, I'm thinking about scrambled eggs today. What do you think? He'd ask, already heading to the kitchen. Only if you promise not to burn the toast this time, I'd shout back, adding, and I'm making the coffee. One day, while we were washing dishes together, a simple task that felt special because we did it together, Jack brought up a topic we had been avoiding. Emma, we need to talk about, starting a family, he said, breaking the comfortable silence. I paused, holding a plate. I know, it's just scary, isn't it? What if we can't? Jack turned to me, drying his hands on a towel. Then we'll handle it together. But we won't know until we try, right? How hard can it be? I laughed, feeling a mix of nerves and love. Famous last words, babe. But that's how we were. No matter what came our way, we faced it together. Even when his mom started hinting about wanting grandchildren every chance she got, we managed. Emma, darling, when are you going to give me some grandbabies? You're not getting any younger, she'd say. Her tone was sweet, but her words were sharp. I just bite my tongue, smile, and say, we're working on it, aren't we, Jack? And he'd jump in. Yeah, Mom, give it a rest, will you? These things take time. But as the year went on, the pressure increased. It wasn't just from his mom, but from within us too. We wanted a family, but it wasn't happening as easily as we hoped. Since Sophia found her new hobby of making my life difficult, our home felt like a battleground, her sharp words the main weapon. It all came to a head one Sunday lunch, a day meant to be relaxed and peaceful. Sophia, with her usual timing, dropped by uninvited just as we were about to sit down. The air tensed the moment she walked in, her eyes scanning the room as if she was about to conduct a military inspection. Well, isn't this quaint? She started, her voice dripping with sarcasm as she looked at the simple meal I prepared. You really outdid yourself, Emma. I can see you've been busy in the kitchen all morning. Her eyes met mine briefly, a smirk on her lips. Trying to keep the peace, I forced a smile. It's nothing fancy, Sophia, just something simple and quick. Please have a seat. As we sat down, she began her usual tirade. Emma, Sophia said, her voice loaded with condescension. I was talking to Mrs. Charlotte the other day, and she mentioned how her grandson was just born. It got me thinking, when are you and Jack going to give me some good news? You're not getting any younger. I felt my cheeks burn with a mix of embarrassment and anger. I glanced at Jack, hoping for some support, but he seemed suddenly very interested in his plate. Mom, come on, Jack finally muttered, but it was half-hearted, and we all knew it. Sophia continued, relentless. I don't mean to be harsh, but you're not a charity. You work hard for your money. Why waste it on Emma if she can't do her basic duties as a wife? Hiring a cleaning service and a cook would be much more efficient, don't you think? That's when I couldn't hold back any longer. Sophia, I am trying my best here. It's not like I don't want to have kids. And as for the house and my cooking, I didn't realize marriage was a service contract. Sophia scoffed. Well, it's not a free ride either. You have responsibilities, Emma, which you're clearly not fulfilling. The room was thick with tension, and I could feel tears starting to form. But what hurt the most wasn't Sophia's words, it was Jack's silence. He finally spoke up, but it wasn't to defend me. Yeah, Mom has a point. Maybe we should consider getting some help around here. It would make things easier for you too. His words felt like a betrayal. It was clear I was on my own. Over the next few days, Sophia's visits became more frequent, and with each visit, her criticism got sharper. She'd inspect the house, pointing out every speck of dust or a pillow out of place. You call this clean? She'd scoff. My eyes must be deceiving me because this looks like a pigsty. Then came the comments about my appearance. Is that what you're wearing? You know a wife should dress to please her husband. It's no wonder Jack is always so tired. He has to come home to this. I tried to fight back. Sophia, I don't dress for Jack. I dress for myself, and he's tired because he works hard, not because of what I wear. But it was like talking to a brick wall. Sophia had made up her mind about me, and nothing I said or did would change it. Jack's lack of support was the biggest blow. Each night after his mom left, we'd argue. Why won't you stand up for me, Jack? She's walking all over us, and you're just letting her. Emma, she's old and set in her ways. What do you want me to do? Kick my own mom out? No, but I want you to be my husband, to stand by me, not her. It was clear this was about more than just Sophia's disapproval. It was about us, our marriage, and whether we were strong enough to stand together or let Sophia's criticisms tear us apart. As the days turned into weeks, I realized this wasn't just a temporary issue. It was a full-on attack, and if we didn't act soon, there might not be anything left to save. Things between me and Jack had been cold since Sophia had intensified her criticisms. But it wasn't just our home life that was under pressure. Jack himself had started acting strange, and it wasn't just because he was stressed at work. It was something more, something that made my stomach turn. It began with phone calls. Jack used to be open about his phone. We didn't keep secrets from each other. But then he started leaving the room. Whenever he got a call, and it was always the same caller ID, Paul Work. One evening, I tried to sound casual and asked, "Who's Paul Work?" Jack flinched, a clear sign he was nervous. "Oh, just a new guy at the office." Asked a lot of questions, he said, but there was more. Jack, who was never into fashion, suddenly started caring about how he looked. The graphic tees and old jeans were gone, replaced by crisp shirts, slacks, and even cologne. "Since when did you start caring about smelling like a department store?" I joked one morning as I watched him comb his hair in a new style. He just smirked too quickly. Just felt like changing things up. No harm in that, right? And then there were the late nights at work, which became more frequent. "Another long one, babe." I texted, trying not to sound needy. "Sorry, this project is killing me. Won't be late, I promise," he texted back. But it would be well past midnight before I'd hear his keys in the door. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It followed me like a shadow. That's when I decided to hire a private detective. It felt like something from a cheesy TV show, but I had to know for sure. The evidence came in a plain brown envelope. As heartbreaking as it was conclusive. Photos of Jack with another woman, their closeness unmistakable. Caught in moments that shattered our years together. But it was the recording that hurt the most. Their conversations, filled with affection and plans, made it clear they were in love, or at least he was with her. I sat there with the evidence laid out in front of me, feeling a cold realization. This was the proof I might need if we ended up in a tough divorce. The photos captured moments stolen from our life together, and the recorded words betrayed every "I love you" he had ever whispered in my ear. But I kept it all to myself, a painful burden I chose to bear alone. I wasn't ready to confront him, not yet. I needed a plan, a way to handle the collapse of our marriage while keeping my dignity. The following days passed in a blur. Jack kept up his act, and I played the role of the perfect wife, smiling on the outside while breaking inside. Our conversations became a careful dance around the truth, each word measured, every laugh forced. "Everything okay, Em? You've been quiet," Jack would ask, his concerns sounding real. "Yeah, just tired, you know." "Work's been crazy," I'd reply, the light bitter in my mouth. It was just another ordinary day, or so I thought, until I overheard a conversation that changed everything. I was passing by Jack's office, the door slightly open, when I heard their voices. It was Jack and his mother, Sophia, and they weren't just making small talk. Their tone was serious, full of intent. "I'm telling you, Mom, I can't do this anymore. It's not just about the kids. I've lost all feelings for Emma. It feels like we're roommates, not husband and wife," Jack said, his voice strained and tired. Sophia's response was sharp. "Of course you feel that way. She hasn't given you a child. And what else has she really brought to this marriage? But let's not rush things. My 65th birthday is coming up, and we wouldn't want to miss out on a generous gift from her, would we?" The cynicism in her voice was like a knife twisting in my gut. They were using me, planning to keep me around just long enough to benefit from a generous birthday gift before casting me aside. "Exactly, dear. Just bide your time a little longer," Sophia confirmed, her voice dripping with malice. I stood there, frozen, feeling both shocked and angry. They were planning to push me out of the family as easily as making a grocery list. The pain was deep, but it ignited a fierce desire for revenge within me. They thought they could use me and toss me aside when convenient. I was determined to show them that I wasn't just a pawn in their twisted game. A few days later, during a family dinner that felt more like an act than a meal, Sophia brought up her upcoming birthday with a smile I had grown to hate. She leaned in and asked, "So, Emma dear, what are you planning for my birthday? Something special, I hope." I looked at her calmly and said, "Actually, Sophia, I was thinking of hosting a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant. A night you won't forget." Her eyes lit up with greed, and she shared a quick, satisfied glance with Jack. They thought they had cornered me, but they didn't know I was already 2 steps ahead. "Oh, Emma, that sounds delightful. Just close family, you know. Keep it intimate," Sophia said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Of course, Sophia." "It'll be our pleasure," I replied, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. The weeks leading up to Sophia's 65th birthday felt like a slow march to a big showdown. Every smirk from her and every indifferent shrug from Jack strengthened my determination. My plan was simple yet bold: host a lavish dinner as a supposed loving gesture, then drop a huge surprise. Like all good plans, the details were crucial. The night before the party, tension filled our home. Jack, unaware of the brewing storm, lounged casually on the couch, scrolling through his phone. "Everything set for tomorrow?" he asked, not looking up. "You could say that," I replied, my voice hiding the chaos inside. The day arrived, and as guests filled the lavish dining room we had reserved for Sophia's celebration, the air was thick with anticipation. My heart raced, not from nerves, but from the thrill of what was about to happen. Sophia, reveling in the attention, basked in the luxury of her surroundings. "Oh, Emma, you've outdone yourself. This place is exquisite," she exclaimed loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. As we all settled in, the meal went on with the strange cheer typical of such family events. Laughs were shared, stories exchanged. Then, as the dessert plates were cleared, the waiter approached with the final act of the evening, the bill. He leaned in discreetly and informed us. The dinner cost was $66,000. I handed over my credit card, unnoticed by most. Then Jack, with a forced smirk, decided to announce his decision. "Emma, I think it's time everyone knew. I'm tired of this of us. I want a divorce." His words hung in the air like a toxic cloud, silencing the room. Before I could fully grasp what he said, Sophia, sharp and unforgiving, chimed in. "Well then, since that's out in the open, I think it's best you leave, Emma. We're celebrating family tonight, and well, you're no longer part of it." The room fell silent, every eye on me, waiting to see my reaction. But I didn't crumble. With a calm I didn't feel, I stood up, nodded, and walked out without a word. The cool night air felt like a slap as I walked home, the finality of everything hitting me in waves. By the time I reached our old apartment, I had a plan. I packed my essentials, my numbness turning into cold resolve. This was it, the end of one life and the start of another. As I zipped up my last suitcase, my phone began to buzz incessantly. Initially, I ignored it, but curiosity won out. Sophia's voice shrieked from the other end. "Emma, the payment didn't go through. You need to fix this now." The irony was sweet. In my preparations, I had blocked the shared account, knowing it would be the first thing Jack would try to use against me. "Oh, Sophia, that's unfortunate. But since I'm no longer part of the family, as you put it, I'm afraid you'll have to sort this out yourself." Her outrage was palpable, even through the phone, but it sounded like music to my ears. The chaos that unfolded was a fitting end to the farce my marriage had become. I heard through the grapevine about the restaurant staff demanding payment, Sophia's escalating tantrums, and eventually the police arriving to calm the situation she caused. In the end, it was Jack and his relatives who had to scrape together the money to settle the bill. A poetic justice for the betrayal and humiliation they had put me through. The morning after dinner felt like waking up after a storm. I had my plan, my resolve, and a set of divorce papers in my hand as I returned to what used to be our shared home for the last time. As soon as I walked through the door, the air was thick with tension, like it could be cut with a knife. Jack and Sophia were there, and they seemed like they had been arguing. Seeing me seemed to unite them in anger. "You've got some nerve showing up here after last night," Jack said, his face a mix of anger and disbelief. Sophia, quick to add her own harsh words, called out, "Ungrateful wretch. You've embarrassed us in front of the whole city. Do you know how humiliating it was to have the police call me down? People were laughing, filming. I met their fury with a calm I didn't feel. Embarrassed. You think that's your biggest problem right now." I tossed the divorce papers on the table, placing the photos of Jack's infidelity on top. "You should be more worried about this." Jack's face went pale as he picked up the photos, with his mother looking over his shoulder. Their anger turned to shock, and then to panic as they realized what I had. "And let's not forget the payout, shall we?" I continued, my voice steady. "You cheat, you pay. $200,000 to be exact." Sophia's face twisted into a snarl. "You wouldn't dare. You can't do this to us." "Oh, but I can. And I will," I replied, my tone cold and final. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Jack changed his approach. "Please, Emma, let's talk about this. We can fix it." I couldn't help but laugh, bitter and hard. "Fix it? You think you can just undo everything with a few words? No, Jack, it's done." Sophia, ever the manipulator, tried to soften her approach. Her voice full of fake concern, she said, "Emma, darling, think about what you're doing. This will ruin us." "That ship has sailed, Sophia. You should have thought about that before. Their begging turned to pleading, their words a desperate scramble to salvage what they could. But my mind was made up. I was done being the victim, done with their lies and manipulations. In the end, Jack had no choice but to borrow the money from his parents to pay me. As I left that house for the last time, check in hand, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. After everything that had happened, I was finally free. I used the money from Jack to make a down payment on a small but cozy place of my own. It's amazing how much peace you can find in a home that's all yours, where every corner feels like a safe haven from the chaos of the past. Life is quieter now, and I prefer it that way. I've got a job that keeps me busy, friendly neighbors who nod and smile, and a little garden that's all mine to take care of. But every now and then, I hear some gossip about Jack and Sophia. Just the other day, I was getting coffee from the local spot where people gather, and I bumped into someone from the old neighborhood. After some small talk, they leaned in, lowered their voice, and said, "Hey, have you heard the latest drama with your ex and his mom?" Their eyes were shining with excitement. I raised an eyebrow, curious yet detached. Can't say that I have. Do tell. They seem to enjoy sharing the news. It seems Sophia isn't too happy with Jack's new girlfriend. Word is, they're fighting like cats and dogs. Makes your situation look like a walk in the park. We moved on from the topic, but as I walked away with my coffee, I felt a deep sense of relief. There was a time when news like this would have upset me, but now it's just another piece of someone else's story. These days, my biggest concerns are whether my tomatoes will ripen before the squirrels get to them, or if I'll ever manage yoga without looking like a newborn deer on ice. Life's simpler, quieter, and so much sweeter on this side of chaos. I initiated the divorce because I perceived that an economically weak spouse was of no use to me. So here is my story. I was busy traveling, and the thing most women dread happening to me while I am on a business trip. Wow. I began to fear that he would claim I married him for what money was in his pockets, and gave up any rights we have on the property. Facing my indifferent husband, who had always looked down on me since we got married, led to his complete downfall. My name is Ava. I'm 40 years old. I was raised by a single mother after my father died when I was in kindergarten. Despite the financial hardships, we found happiness as a family of 3. Even now, with a decent job and salary, I still live frugally because of my upbringing. I married Larry, a wealthy man I met through a friend. I was drawn to his kindness and the new possibilities he introduced to me. After we got married, our different views on money and gender roles became clear. Larry imagined a traditional home where I would stay at home, but I was committed to my career and staying financially independent. Before we married, Larry suggested I become a housewife, assuming I would accept traditional roles. However, I made it clear I wanted to keep working until we had kids, pointing out the financial advantages. I managed to convince him, but the reality of balancing work and home responsibilities was hard. Even though I worked full-time, I still had to do all the house chores, leaving us little time together. Meanwhile, Larry, sticking to a traditional husband's role, did nothing at home. He just enjoyed his dinner and relaxed when he got home. Trying to balance work and home life strained our relationship and made me wonder if this was really what marriage was supposed to be like. I was afraid to tell Larry how unhappy I was because I thought he might make me quit my job. Even though he didn't help at home, I hoped that having children might improve our relationship. But we were becoming more distant, making me doubt we could start a family. Feeling it was urgent to talk about this, I approached Larry. "Hey, we should think about having kids, right?" I said. "You're pretty energetic for someone tired from work and chores," he replied. "It's not about that. I want to have children. We haven't been married long, but I'm already over 32. Women can only have children for a certain time, and it's getting harder for me to conceive as I get older. It's almost too late. But we don't need kids. If we have one, you'll expect me to help, right? You know I'm busy with work and won't help with raising children. Isn't it strange to say you won't help with child rearing even before they're born? I plan to raise them alone, but shouldn't you at least want to help? It's your child too. Child rearing is your job. I'm working to support the family, so I definitely won't help with the kids. You'll just complain that I don't help, making me the bad guy. You must have been taught to be poor and have lots of kids since you were born. We're not poor. We don't need kids. End of discussion. Larry abruptly ended the conversation, then went to his room. Alone in the living room, I broke down in tears. My desire for children was not only rejected, but he also mocked my upbringing. After this, our relationship got worse quickly. We barely talked, and the hope of having children faded. As I continued to balance work and home duties, taking on significant projects at work, I found myself growing more distant from Larry. One day, as I told him about an upcoming business trip, his unexpected kindness caught me off guard. He wished me well and hinted at a big surprise when I returned. But my hope was crushed when I came back. The front door wouldn't open. Larry had changed the locks. His first surprise was announcing our divorce. He claimed to have faked my signature and filed the papers with a friend as a witness. Inside, he handed me a document to sign, giving up my rights to any property division and protesting the false accusations. I insisted that we both give up our rights to any property, and I wanted this to be a public agreement. Larry stubbornly argued and revised the document on his computer, leading to a tense argument. As I left the house, he kept mocking me for being poor and even threatened to throw out my things. A few days later, Larry called me in a panic. "What did you do?" he asked. "I haven't done anything." "Why are you panicking?" "I have many questions. First, I was told to leave the apartment." "Oh, you were still living there. That's not allowed. It's a new month. You're trespassing." "Trespassing? But it's my house." "Are you okay? Did you forget it was a company apartment I rented? I was the leaseholder, so naturally, you can't live there anymore." "That's ridiculous. How could you do this? I can't believe you didn't know." "I'm not the one who should be accused here. Didn't I tell you that you can't just change the locks of a rental apartment? It's my house. I can change the locks if I want." "Didn't you listen? It was my lease, and even if you were the leaseholder, the owner is the apartment manager. You can't change the locks without telling them." "Is that so? Also, I ended the lease while you changed the locks. I was allowed to live there until this month. I was planning to return, but now you've unlawfully altered someone else's property, which could be criminal damage." "Wait, why did you end it so early?" "Criminal damage? Is that why the police are at the front door now?" "Don't worry, it's probably not for trespassing or criminal damage. It's better to talk to them." "Why do I know about the police?" "Because I reported you for filing the divorce papers yourself. It looks like you've committed crimes like forgery and fraudulent use of a document. Divorce papers can be filed by one person, but only with mutual agreement and personal signatures. Since you forged my signature and the witness, it's clearly a crime." Larry seemed unaware of his guilt. "So the divorce papers you submitted are invalid, and your marriage with Laura can't happen either." "How do you know about Laura? Did you think I knew nothing?" "I hired a private detective agency to investigate your affair with Laura. It was a busy time at work, and coordinating with the agency was tough. Plus, you even held a grand wedding ceremony while I was supposedly on a business trip. I actually took time off work to do some research and prepare documents because I knew about Larry bringing Laura home. It would have been impossible to gather this evidence while working. After I told Larry everything, he was speechless and seemed quite upset, even over the phone. Then he pleaded with me, "Please don't tell Laura I'm divorced." Why would I? There's no such fact to tell, really. Thank you. Are you misunderstanding something? When did you become divorced? That fake divorce paper is invalid. Remember, so legally you're still my husband, not divorced. What? So since you cheated while still legally my husband, Laura needs to pay compensation. I sent the demand for compensation to her house yesterday by express delivery. She didn't know you were married, right? Then I can't withdraw the claim at this point. I knew Laura believed Larry was single, but I deliberately sent the compensation demand. Laura hasn't contacted me yet, so maybe she hasn't received the letter. It should arrive soon. Should you be on the phone with me when you also have to deal with the police? You're busy. I'll ignore the police. I won't be arrested. I'm going to Laura's house now to get the letter back before she or her family can accept it. He then hung up and probably went straight to Laura's house to wait for the postman at the front door. I knew it would be futile because the letter was sent as registered mail to Laura only. A few hours later, a disheartened Larry called me. According to him, there was an incident when the postman arrived. Finally, I'll take that envelope. Who are you? You don't live here, right? I'm practically a resident here since I'm married. I have the right to receive the mail. I see, but I can't give you this envelope. It's registered mail for Laura only. What? Give it to me. Absolutely not. If you're so eager, ask Laura for permission. What's going on here? Oh, Larry, what's all this noise? Laura, this is registered mail for you. This man insisted on taking it. Sorry for the disturbance. What's this? A demand for compensation, Larry. You were married. What's going on here? Sorry, it's just, she's an ex-wife from a long time ago. I was embarrassed to say, I'm divorced. I'm sorry for keeping it a secret. But isn't it strange? We haven't been dating long, and suddenly there's a demand for compensation. If you were divorced before we started dating, there shouldn't be any problem, right? Well, my ex-wife is crazy. Maybe she's demanding compensation out of spite because I got married. That was the excuse he gave, but his lie was soon exposed. The envelope included a letter I wrote along with my contact information. So Laura called me directly. During that call, I told her about the affair, the invalid divorce, and that they had a wedding ceremony while he was still married to me. Although they had a wedding ceremony, they hadn't submitted the marriage registration yet. Larry wanted to submit it on April Fool's Day, so it was still pending. He probably delayed submitting the marriage registration because he was unsure whether the divorce was finalized. After being exposed, Larry left Laura's house and shamelessly contacted me again. I still had something to tell him, so we agreed to meet at a nearby cafe. As soon as I arrived, Larry said, "Ava, please withdraw the compensation claim. Let's pretend we've been separated for a long time and officially divorced. Now I can apologize to Laura for being secretly divorced and maybe cover it up. Do you think I'm desperate to stay married to you? I was going to file for divorce anyway. But since you cheated, you'll pay compensation. Just trying to extort money from me, huh? Typical of you." "You have such a poor heart," he said. "You're talking nonsense. Depending on my answer, everything can change. There's still an option where we don't divorce. If I say no, you can't reject it, meaning you can't marry Laura, and your marital status will be exposed. Fine, I'll pay the compensation. Just divorce me now. Sign here. Then about property division. How much more do you want to take from me? Come on, compensation should be enough. Remember, we agreed to waive property division, right? So let's make it official. All right, you're not as bad as I thought. Thank you. We then went to a public notary, made a public document for compensation and property division, and then to the city hall to submit the divorce papers, finalizing our divorce. Relieved, I exchanged final words with Larry. Glad we don't have to divide property. What are you saying? I'm the one who benefits from that. By the way, do you even have assets after paying me compensation? Laura will also claim damages. She mentioned charging you for the wedding expenses. That's impossible. I'm marrying Laura. She can't claim that we're divorced now, so there should be no problem. Still living in a fantasy, H? You committed marriage fraud. You had a wedding while still married. Do you think Laura still believes you? Marriage fraud, that's ridiculous. Laura will believe me. Believe that if you want. I heard from Laura directly. Also, word the guests at your wedding paid actors. You still owe them. You know about that. I haven't paid them yet. What does it matter to you? You could have just taken property division and been better off. That's what I wanted to tell you. Even if we had divided property, you would have benefited more. What are you talking about, poor woman? Your family is poor, and you only make $230,000 a year, right? Even if you got a raise, it would be barely $30,000. You don't have any property. You keep calling me poor, so I thought you might be mistaken. Yes, my salary is indeed $145,000, but you know I work for a foreign company, right? It seems you have no interest in me, but I became a director of an American brand. It's not $145,000 per year, but per month. $170,000 per month. So that's an annual income of $2.5 million. You're still bad with numbers. How do you manage to keep a job? It's $2.5 million a year. $2.5 million? That can't be true. Of course, I haven't had the chance to spend such an amount, so I've been saving it for the future. The savings from before our marriage aren't part of the property division, but there's still a considerable amount since our marriage. So I could have received half of that in the property division. You were my wife, after all. I'll get the divorce papers corrected. Are you okay after all the contempt? You think I'd gladly undo the divorce? If you have that much money, you don't need to claim compensation, right? It's just a small amount for you. I'll laugh at 1 cent, will weep for 1 cent. This compensation is for the mental anguish you caused me. I'd like to claim more honestly, and since we've made it official, make sure to pay it in installments. I'll be penniless. Also, don't go back to that apartment. Your belongings should have been moved to your parents' house by now. You thought I had few belongings, but that was because I had already moved. Most of them were indifferent to me. I could have so little, so I have to go back to my parents' house. They don't know anything yet. Let me explain. Don't say anything. I already told them everything. It's only fair to explain why we're divorcing. Oh, and your father said never to step over our threshold again. So I have nowhere to go. He collapsed and I left the cafe. Later, I heard he caused trouble at the police station. Despite my advice, he went back to the apartment. He just sat there aimlessly in the empty apartment until the manager called the police, and he was taken away. I'm not sure if it was for obstructing public duties, trespassing, or the falsified divorce papers. Eventually, his parents took responsibility for him after talking with me and learning about Laura. They decided that apologizing and paying damages to Laura's family came first. They went to Laura's house to apologize, kneeling in front of her family. They settled everything without pressing charges for marriage fraud, even paying for the wedding expenses. I had expected them to sue, so it was disappointing they didn't. I decided to pursue legal action against him for forging the divorce papers. Larry offered a settlement, but I didn't withdraw the lawsuit. I didn't want him to think everything could be solved with money. I wanted him to be convicted and understand the gravity of his actions. Even if it cost time and money, I left everything to my lawyer, so it wasn't too burdensome for me. Even though it took time, Larry was exposed for his actions and the marriage fraud. He couldn't stay at his company anymore after being detained by the police and subsequently absent without leave. He was eventually fired. He ended up living at his parents' home, working all day at a relative's construction company. His father took all his earnings, leaving him with no income. I thought his parents wouldn't abandon him, but they were stricter than I expected. They paid my compensation and Laura's compensation, planning to make him work hard until he repaid everything. He lived in a shed-like place with no electricity, receiving only $10 per day for food, deducted from his salary. They planned to kick him out once he'd repaid everything. A harsh fate after years of hard work. I was offered a position at the head office abroad, so I moved overseas after the divorce was finalized. I worried that Larry might come to me for help or harbor resentment, but moving abroad alleviated those concerns. Initially, I thought work would be my sole companion for a while, but life took an unexpected turn. I soon found myself in a new relationship. I am now dating a foreign executive at our head office. Things have progressed quickly, and I'm pregnant with plans to marry soon. I shared everything about my past and my ex-husband with him, and he's been incredibly understanding and supportive. We've discussed our future together in depth. I'll be taking maternity leave soon, and we've planned for me to return to work afterward. He's enthusiastic about taking paternity leave and embracing the role of an active co-parent, which showcases a refreshing cultural perspective compared to what I experienced previously. My past experiences with my ex-husband were challenging, but now I finally feel like I'm on the path to true happiness. I am gaining confidence each day and moving closer to building the happy family I've always dreamed of. The journey here taught me a lot about resilience and the complexity of relationships. Many people endure suffering due to selfish partners, and while divorce isn't always the preferred solution, enduring in silence is certainly not a virtue. It's crucial to recognize that open and honest discussions can pave the way to meaningful resolutions. In some cases, divorce turns out to be a necessary decision for personal growth and well-being. This chapter of my life has reinforced that belief, helping me move forward with a new sense of purpose and hope for the future. I'm Amelia. A few weeks back, I lost my dad after a long struggle with his health. I often catch myself wishing I could have introduced him to his grandchildren, a thought that brings a heavy sigh. 6 years ago, at 35, I got married. During that joyful day, my dad and I made a heartfelt promise. I would tell him first if I was expecting. Sadly, that's a promise I'll never fulfill, and it's my biggest regret concerning my dad. His sickness was diagnosed a year ago, and since then, I've put all my effort into being there for him. I visited my childhood home more often, spent numerous hours at the hospital alongside my mom, and made sure to call or video chat even more frequently. Despite all this, I sometimes wonder if it could have been enough. I could have done more, I whispered, lost in thought. My mom, always supportive, comforted me. Amelia, you did everything you could. Your dad knew that, and he was proud. Just then, my sister, Freya, walked in followed by a man I guessed was around 48, presumably the lawyer. "This is Jack, the attorney," she introduced him, and my mom quickly offered him a seat. As soon as we all settled down, Freya couldn't help herself. The lawyer mentioned Dad left us a significant inheritance. I couldn't help but respond, "Freya, you know it's not all yours." That exchange soured the mood instantly. My sister and I had a rocky relationship, worsened by our dad's illness. Her refusal to visit our dad, despite my attempts to bridge the gap between them, didn't help matters. Her attitude has always been a barrier, and it only grew more pronounced during these tough times. In hindsight, my words to my sister might have been a bit too sharp, fueled by my concern for our father. However, her response didn't help the situation either. "You're grown up, there's no need to be so obstinate," I pointed out, to which she snapped back, "I'm not being obstinate." Living in the city and traveling to the countryside isn't as simple as you think. "It's just a 3-hour drive," I countered, but she argued. Those 3 hours are not just about time, it costs money. And yes, money is important to me. "I'm busy, so please just stop nagging me." That marked the end of our conversation. Despite the distance, I always believed she could make an effort to visit now and then. This belief was a major factor in the swift decline of our relationship. Ultimately, she never visited our father, and the rift between us only deepened. The tension in the room grew until the lawyer stepped in, suggesting we all take a moment to calm down. "I'm sorry," I said, offering an apology which seemed to ease the atmosphere slightly. The lawyer then explained, "As I mentioned over the phone, I'm here regarding your father's will." My mother, puzzled, whispered, "When was this arranged?" The lawyer replied, "A few weeks before he passed." "Your father reached out to me. He asked you to come to the hospital." My mother asked, "Yes, I drafted the will there with him in the presence of his primary doctor. It was arranged that the doctor would notify me upon your father's passing, which is why I contacted you now," the lawyer clarified, pulling out a white envelope and placing it before us. Recognizing my father's handwriting on the envelope, I whispered, "That's definitely Dad's handwriting." Freya, visibly impatient, demanded, "Just get on with it." "What does it say?" "You know I'm busy." The lawyer, with a hint of a smile, opened the envelope. Inside, there was a single piece of paper outlining the inheritance: the house, land, some savings, and a storage shed. We were aware of the house and land, but the mention of a storage shed was new to me. My sister, frustrated, turned to the lawyer. "Wait, what about the farm?" The lawyer echoed, a bit surprised. "Yes, the farm. Dad used to work on it as a hobby," I explained. Our father had run a successful business in a nearby town, but decided to slow down after turning 52, considering closing the company to spend more time on his hobbies, including the farm. This new mention of the farm added another layer of complexity to our father's legacy and what he left behind. During my high school years, I remember expressing a desire to take things a bit slower in life. My sister, who was attending college at the time, didn't agree with this laid-back approach. However, both my mom and I, concerned about my dad's health, supported the idea. "Don't fret over finances, Freya. We're well prepared with savings," my dad comforted her. With some reluctance, she gave her nod of approval. Following this conversation, my father indeed wound down his business operations and took up farming close to our home. "There's something fulfilling about working with the land," he would say, his face lighting up with joy. Witnessing his happiness reinforced my belief that we had made the right decision, though Freya seemed less convinced. Despite promising to return home post-graduation, she pursued a career close to her university, eventually marrying the CEO of a firm she met through her job. That's the backdrop to my father embracing farming until his health declined. Freya insisted the farm be considered part of the inheritance. Upon her insistence, the lawyer re-examined the documents and uncovered that the farm was actually leased land. I thought aloud, mistakenly believing we owned a substantial tract of land. Freya appeared visibly let down by this revelation. The realization that the expansive land my father had used for vegetable farming was leased seemed to ease my initial disappointment. Knowing little about farming ourselves, perhaps it was for the best. The discussion then pivoted to how the inheritance would be divided. The house and the surrounding land will go to the wife, the lawyer outlined. Freya smirked, perhaps thinking about the remainder of the assets and how they would be split. The rest, including the savings and the storage shed, should be divided between you three, the lawyer suggested. Savings, that means cash, right? I'll take that, Freya stated, eyeing the liquidity. The total savings amount to approximately $100,000. This sum is not subject to inheritance tax, the lawyer informed us. I want the $100,000 in cash, Freya declared with a sense of victory. But such a one-sided arrangement didn't sit right with me, and I voiced my objection. Hold on, I don't agree. Why should you get all the cash? I protested. Because I'm the eldest, she argued, as if that settled it. Fine, you can have the storage shed. What's that even worth anyway? She dismissively added, turning her attention back to the lawyer for further clarification. It's the shed adjacent to the farm. Whoever inherits it will own the structure, the land it's on, and anything inside it, the lawyer explained. Suddenly interested, Freya's attitude shifted at the mention of additional land. It struck me as odd, married to a successful CEO, yet her appetite for more seemed insatiable. As the lawyer explained the details about the storage shed, he mentioned it came with a small patch of land, roughly 75 square feet, about the size of a cozy bedroom. He then laid out some photographs of the shed for us to see, showing its exterior and interior. The shed looked quite neglected from the outside, and inside it housed only simple gardening tools like hoses, scissors, and shovels. Nothing that caught the eye as particularly valuable. My sister made a face of distaste upon seeing the photos. I don't want this, she declared, scrutinizing the images. They indeed showed nothing more than everyday items, valuable more for their memories than any monetary worth. Fine, you take the cash. I want nothing to do with that rundown shed, she stated clearly, eager to distance herself from what she saw as an unworthy inheritance. Hold on, that seems unfair, I protested, realizing the imbalance in the division. My sister had swiftly agreed to take the cash, knowing it was the more valuable asset, leaving me with what she saw as worthless. Her insistence made me feel cornered, especially when my mother mentioned, as long as Freya doesn't voice any complaints later, I see no issue with this arrangement. Complaint? Why would I? Freya quickly agreed to the division, content with securing the cash for herself, leaving me with the shed. I couldn't hide my dissatisfaction, but before I could argue further, Freya dismissed my concerns, accusing me of being overly sentimental. You care more about our father than money, right? She challenged, leaving me momentarily lost for words. Indeed, family should be valued over money, but her swift conclusion to the conversation left me feeling unsettled. In the end, my mother inherited the house and land. Freya happily took all of Dad's savings, and I was left with the neglected shed. After agreeing to the division, Freya even signed a document promising not to raise any disputes over how the inheritance was split, laughing confidently as she did so. I couldn't contain my frustration and later expressed my grievances to my mother. Why didn't you support me? I asked, feeling let down. My mother insisted she had helped, claiming her intervention had ensured I received the shed. But I'm not pleased with just the shed, I argued, unable to see its value. You might discover something unexpectedly wonderful if you give it a chance, my mom suggested optimistically. Despite my frustrations, her words sparked a faint glimmer of hope. Maybe there was more to the shed than met the eye, a thought that left me pondering as I tried to reconcile the day's events. After receiving the key from the lawyer, I made my way to the shed, situated beside the field, a serene 20-minute walk from our house along a rarely trodden rural path. The field, which my father had leased until his recent hospitalization, lay fallow, giving the surroundings an untouched, solemn atmosphere. Unlocking the shed, I was greeted by a thick layer of dust, a testament to its long neglect. "Wow, it's dusty," I remarked, the air heavy with the scent of disuse. Despite the initial disappointment, I held on to the hope that something of my father's, a keepsake perhaps, might be hidden within. As I surveyed the interior, it quickly became apparent that the shed was exactly as it seemed, a simple, utilitarian space filled with the tools of farming. These items, while potentially holding sentimental value, didn't immediately stand out as particularly special. Maybe I should just take what's inside for now, I considered, my eyes scanning the dim, cluttered environment. That's when I sensed something peculiar about the shed's dimensions. It appeared smaller on the inside than it did from the outside, a discrepancy that puzzled me. Could it have been a trick of the light, or was my mind playing tricks on me? Stepping outside for a clearer perspective, I remained intrigued by the anomaly. Driven by curiosity, I decided to explore the shed's exterior, circling to its rear. There, hidden among a dense thicket of trees, I discovered a second door. Wait, another entrance. I gasped. The interior wall of the shed had shown no signs of this door from the inside. It seemed as if there was only one way in or out. This realization hinted at a concealed space accessible only from this mysterious rear entry. A surge of excitement washed over me. Could this be one of Dad's secrets? He had a penchant for surprises, delighting in the unexpected joys they brought, much like the surprises he planned for my birthdays. Memories of those times brought tears to my eyes as I re-entered the shed, determined to find the key to this hidden door. Sure enough, after a thorough search, I found 3 keys ingeniously hidden within the handle of a shovel. Rushing to the rear door with a hopeful heart, I inserted one of the keys, and with a satisfying click, the door swung open. Inside this cramped, secluded space stood a large safe, solitary and imposing. Is this from Dad's company? I wondered aloud, the presence of the safe sparking a whirlwind of questions. What secrets did it hold? Was this my father's way of leaving a final, tangible piece of himself behind? The discovery hinted at layers of my father's life that I had yet to uncover, a personal treasure hunt he had laid out for me to embark upon. I instantly recognized the safe as the one that used to sit in the corner of my father's office, a sight I remembered from my childhood. Embracing it, I was washed over by nostalgia. This safe was a tangible connection to my father, making the inheritance all the more meaningful. Yet, knowing my dad, this discovery felt like just the beginning of his final surprises for me. There's got to be more, I whispered to myself as I used the second key to unlock the safe. The door creaked open, revealing contents that left me utterly amazed. An unexpected legacy. Realizing the importance of sharing this discovery, I quickly secured the safe and went to inform my mother. Afterward, with my husband's assistance, we transported the safe from my parents' home. It dawned on me that these valuable items, undoubtedly part of my inheritance, might have tax implications. Determined to handle this properly, I decided to seek legal advice. Following the lawyer's suggestion, I contacted a certified public accountant, CPA, recommended by a friend to navigate the potentially complex tax situation. This professional took charge of the intricate details, ensuring everything was in order. A year of navigating these matters had passed. When unexpectedly my sister showed up near my home, her visit was out of the blue, especially considering our recent strained relationship over the inheritance. I was just in the area, she claimed, but her uneasy demeanor and the fact that we lived 30 minutes apart made her visit seem less than casual despite our complicated history. I invited her in after serving coffee. She appeared restless, eventually asking, "Did you win the lottery or something?" Her questions puzzled me. I never played the lottery, and it wasn't the season for my husband's holiday bonus. "What are you getting at?" I finally asked, seeking clarity on her bizarre insinuations. Her mood shifted suddenly to irritation. "Are you making fun of me?" she accused. Her reaction puzzled me even further as her line of questioning seemed completely out of left field. I had no idea what could have prompted such an inquiry or why she would think I had come into a sudden windfall. Apart from the mysterious contents of the safe that only my family knew about, my sister was practically buzzing with curiosity about the subject of money, insisting that I must have come into a significant sum. She recounted a recent encounter with our aunt in the city who unwittingly sparked her curiosity. Our aunt had mentioned receiving an $11,000 gift card from me as a thank you for visiting our father during his illness. This gesture led my sister to speculate wildly that I had stumbled upon some unexpected fortune. "You've come into some money, haven't you? Just admit it," she pressed me for answers. Understanding the root of her inquiry, I let out a sigh, which only seemed to irritate her further. "What's with the attitude? Are you making fun of me?" she demanded. I tried to explain it was simply a gesture of appreciation, which led her to question the source of the funds for such gifts. I reminded her of the inheritance, specifically the dusty shed she had disdainfully mentioned, and revealed the discovery of the safe inside it. A true treasure trove left by our father. The safe contained a collection of valuable watches, a passion of our father's. Though unsure of their exact worth, it was evident they held considerable value, especially given the modest amount of savings left. This revelation led to a discussion about the potential need for paying inheritance tax, a concern my mother had raised upon learning of the safe's contents. "What should I do, Mom?" I asked, seeking her wisdom. My mother advised handling the matter transparently, suggesting that such secrets have a way of coming to light eventually. Following her counsel, I reached out to the lawyer we had previously consulted, who clarified that the value of inherited items determines the applicable inheritance tax. This led me to take the responsible step of accurately declaring the inheritance, ensuring compliance with the legal and financial implications of my newfound wealth. In seeking professional advice, I learned that a certified public accountant, CPA, could efficiently manage the valuation and tax obligations of the inherited watches for me. Entrusting this task to the accountant, we discovered the collection was valued at a staggering $500,000. Given their high value, the implication was clear. Inheritance tax was due. The sensible course of action, as advised, was to retain only those pieces that held sentimental value to me and sell the others to someone who could appreciate and afford them. This approach not only made financial sense, but also felt right emotionally. From the proceeds of the sale, I managed to cover the inheritance tax and also extend my gratitude through gift cards to relatives who supported us during my father's illness. This is what had sparked my sister's curiosity. Among the keepsakes, I chose to keep my father's pocket watch, a piece not of great monetary worth, but rich in memories. I shared this story with my sister, showing her the pocket watch, trying to convey its sentimental value. However, her reaction was lukewarm, seemingly more interested in what was sold than what was kept. When she inquired about the remaining watches and the whereabouts of the safe, I informed her it was at our mother's house, explaining the safe's size and its historical significance to our father's business. Her response was contemplative, leaving me feeling uneasy about her intentions. Yet she departed without further questions, to my relief. Though I couldn't shake off an unsettling sense of worry, my fears were somewhat confirmed that very night. A distressing call from my mother urged my husband and me to hurry to her house. As we neared, the scene was alarming. Red lights flashing in the darkness, police cars stationed outside. Making my way through the gathering crowd, I found my mother and learned of the evening's harrowing events. She had been preparing for bed when unusual noises startled her. It sounded like someone was frantically searching through the house. Believing a burglar had broken in, and with no one else home to help, my mother made a quick decision to escape through a window, a move driven by fear and desperation. The situation she described was unnerving, painting a night filled with panic and uncertainty. Under the veil of night, my mother noticed the eerie glow of a flashlight moving inside the house, confirming her fears of a burglary. In a state of panic, she sought help from our neighbor who, upon witnessing the suspicious activity, wasted no time in calling the police, convinced a burglar was at large. Yet the supposed intruder was none other than my sister, Freya, who had decided to search the safe after hearing about my inheritance earlier that day. Without any way to identify her intentions, both my mother and the neighbor were understandably alarmed. The situation escalated when the police arrived. Caught off guard and enveloped in guilt, Freya attempted to flee the scene. Her actions were fueled by a misguided panic. Ironically, her escape efforts led her to collide with the safe, causing the unsteady object to topple over and trap her underneath. This accident led to her being rushed to the hospital with complaints of leg pain, leaving us all in disbelief over her reckless actions. Following this chaos, my mother and I found ourselves apologizing to the responding officers for the misunderstanding. I also felt compelled to inform Freya's husband about the incident, only to discover from him that Freya had been harboring a significant amount of debt due to her extravagant spending on luxury items. Their recent argument had culminated in her storming out, determined to borrow from Mom to settle her financial woes. Unbeknownst to us that she had already depleted her inheritance in an attempt to cover her debt. Freya's husband, already on edge from discovering the extent of her financial mismanagement, declared his intention to divorce her upon learning of her latest escapade. This revelation shed light on Freya's desperate actions that night, which had led to a tumultuous scene at the hospital where her husband broached the subject of divorce. The entire ordeal unfolded into a dramatic clash, underscoring the profound consequences of Freya's actions and the turmoil they had wrought upon our family. Freya was adamant, insisting I'm not getting a divorce. Absolutely not. Yet the reality of her situation became undeniable when her husband presented the divorce papers. Faced with the stark evidence of their fractured relationship, she found herself with no option but to sign them. Now confined to her hospital bed with a mixture of shock and resignation, she's turning the pages of a part-time job magazine, evidently scheming on ways to tackle her debt through newfound employment. This turn of events, while unfortunate, offered a glimmer of hope that she might finally take responsibility for her actions. In the wake of these tumultuous events, I made a significant decision myself, to return to my childhood home. The chaos had certainly stirred a deep concern for my mother's well-being in me, but another, happier reason spurred my decision. I discovered what I was expecting. After much discussion, my husband and I agreed that moving back would be best, allowing us to lean on my mother's support with our growing family. Though I regret that my father couldn't be part of this joyous news, I find comfort in believing he would have shared in our happiness. As I navigate this new chapter, the anticipation of welcoming a healthy child fills me with a sense of peace and forward-looking optimism despite the recent family strife.